Welcome back to another episode of the In the Game podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Clinton, and we are talking about some of the major updates coming in College Football 25. But first, I want to thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in to this podcast, to the show, or on the YouTube channel, and really want to just express how thankful I am for you guys watching and keeping up and allowing us to do this kind of content. We love this game. We've been looking forward to this game for over a decade, and it is just so awesome to be able to cover this and help bring some of this content to you guys. So thank you, and just continue showing your support to us by subscribing and listening to us over wherever you're finding your podcasts. All right, so the title updates. We've got a lot to talk about. We actually had a couple of things drop here as of Tuesday morning. Actually had a patch note come out from EA, and it reads, "This morning we distributed a smaller title update, which is designed to address some issues that have been affecting your gameplay experience." What's the first part of it? And we have 4 things here in particular that were addressed. The first thing is when you were an away team, there were some issues where you weren't able to change your offensive audibles for online head-to-head. So you weren't able to save online or your offensive audibles or change play in some head-to-head situations, and so they made a patch to fix that. Obviously, that would be incredibly frustrating. You're taking somebody on head-to-head online and you're not able to audible out of things. So could see why that was an issue. That's been fixed. Reduced frequency of roughing the kicker from AI players on field goals. This, for me, has happened at least once or twice in some pretty big situations, and it felt like something that was happening more often than it should, especially whenever I compared that with some friends as well who are experiencing similar issues. So that is something that EA has addressed and has done. They've done their due diligence and changed that. So that should no longer be an issue as of this morning. Fixed a rare issue of the snap going behind the quarterback. I actually did have this happen. I wasn't able to capture it on gameplay. I was actually on defense, and I was facing the opponent, the computer, on this. I was actually facing AI, and it happened to AI while they were in the red zone, and the ball pretty much flew right behind the quarterback all the way back to like the 50-yard line, and he was able to run back there and grab it and fall on it. But obviously, you go from being in the red zone to well out of field goal range. It changes things pretty big. So I could see why that would be a major issue, needed to be addressed, and it sounds like that's something they've taken care of. And the last one was stability and server improvements. I personally have not had a lot of server issues. I don't think I've been disconnected from any games, but there have been some stability issues for some people out there, and so it sounds like those are some things that have been fixed. The second part of the announcement here is where we're going to spend most of our time today, and that is the EA says a larger title update will be coming in the near future, which will receive a full campus huddle detailing all of the updates coming to each portion of the game. So first and foremost, that tells me if there's a full campus huddle coming, those have been incredibly in-depth, big documents from EA whenever they've released those. So that tells me there is a massive patch coming at some point. And as good as this game is or has been for us, I think obviously this is going to be a welcome addition to the game, because a lot of the things that we are having problems with as players on this game are frustrating. They're simple fixes, and this is something to be expected, especially when you've had a game like this gone for over a decade. And so when you bring something back in, it's truly relaunched. You can really tell the difference between this and Madden. As far as the gameplay goes, you can tell that it is on the same Frostbite engine, but it is not in any way, shape, or form the same kind of gameplay. You can tell that there are some things that need to be worked out. And so that was kind of expected with this game, but there have been a lot of bugs, left a lot of people frustrated. And so, there are definitely things coming down the pipe about those fixes. And so some of the things that you can expect among those fixes. So there are some pretty hysterical college football playoff top 25 polls. I'm sure you've seen on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, where you've got players or you've got teams that are like 7-5, but they are number 2 or like number 3 in the playoff predictions or in the playoff poll. And it just, the realism isn't there. It seems kind of kind of funky that you have teams like that, regardless, being ranked, let alone that high in the rankings. So that seems like something that is pretty common request and will probably be changed up. We do know for a fact that one of the things EA has noticed, has taken account of, is the outcry of issues regarding Dynasty. There have been a couple of issues or bugs where your Dynasty sim results, whenever you use the Super Sim feature, that are just incredibly unrealistic. For example, in a couple of Dynasty situations, I've seen an FCS school beat Georgia, and not just by like 3 points. We're talking like a 38-14 beat down, which just simply isn't realistic whatsoever. And now, hear me out on this. I do want to say college football wouldn't be college football if there weren't upsets. I mean, some of the biggest upsets in college football history will always live on as part of the lore of the game. I mean, you have Appalachian State beating Michigan. As much as it pains me to bring it up, you've got Boise State beating Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. You've seen these huge upsets that just kind of seem to be woven into the fabric of the sport and what makes it so beautiful, so awesome. Now, those don't happen all the time. It's not impossible, but it's highly improbable that an FCS school is going to beat a Georgia team that is by far and away been the best consistent winner over the last several years. Remind me the last time Georgia lost a regular season game, let alone to a team not named Alabama. So it's pretty clear, at least to me, that is not something that we should really expect in this game, and I think that'll be fixed. And of course, now I sound like a buffoon because I just said Georgia getting beat by Alabama in the regular season. They haven't played in the regular season, but you get what I'm saying. I don't know the last time that Georgia has lost to somebody that wasn't a college football playoff contender, let alone the FCS Southeast Pandas. So just a curious thing that a lot of people are dealing with, and sounds like that's going to be one of the issues that gets fixed. Another thing that we can expect is some gameplay updates, some bugs. We just talked about the issue with the snap going behind the quarterback. One of the things that needs to be tuned, the player pursuit, the defensive pursuit in this game is wonky. That's is probably the best or nicest way of putting it. There are some pretty big issues when it comes to your defensive players and how they are pursuing the running back or the wide receiver, just leaving some open spaces for guys. The tackling mechanics can be obviously pretty broken. You've seen the videos, obviously, of a guy breaking 12, 13, 14 tackles all the way down the field, or running amongst a group of defenders, and like just this conglomeration of people, a mass of people just moving towards the end zone, and he ends up scoring. So things like that are expected to be fixed. That's something that you can kind of take to the bank, if you will, on fixes. So bugs like that should be fixed. Another thing is tuning. So when you tune the game, we're talking about specific tuning. For example, when defenders are playing zone, right now a lot of your better players are going to stick to almost solely man when they're playing defense, because the zone defenses have been, well, pretty much trash to this point. Zones are very loose, they're wide, you've got a lot of opportunities to pick apart a defense, and the AI will waste no time in doing that on Heisman or All-American if you're playing zone. So that part is tough. I think that they are going to adjust that a little bit, as we've seen them do in Madden in recent years. I hope that they don't. One of the things I really hope with that tuning is that they don't overdo it to the point that it becomes a defensive game, because college football is clearly more offensive than you would see in the NFL. There's a lot more points scored typically in a game, in a college game. You have less experienced players. You have wider range of players as far as skill, talent, or just depth. And so I think that that's big, is that they don't they don't ruin that aspect of it. As long as they can find a way of doing that without turning it into a defensive strength instead of offensive, I think that's okay. So hopefully they figure that part out, but I do expect some tunes to come to the game as well, just as far as the defensive side of the ball goes. Another thing has to be fixed, absolutely has to be fixed, is the spinning mechanic. We've all seen it. We have played the guy that refuses to use anybody but Ohio State. He runs stretch left and right with Quinshon Judkins, and he's unstoppable because if you have any semblance of stick work, you're able to use those running back abilities. He's pretty much unstoppable. He's impossible to tackle. So I do expect that to be nerfed significantly. Now, how far do they take it? How far is the nerf process? Do they make it to where you rather juke than spin? I don't know. I think clearly there are some balances that need to happen there, and my hope is that they find a way of doing it where, those moves are still viable. You just don't want them to over nerf it to the point that it becomes pointless to try and run the football with guys that have that as their main ability. So there will be some changes to that, and that's something that you can expect probably pretty early on in the process of these new updates. But, it's something that they need to find a happy medium between. And so that's kind of my prayer, so they find a way of doing that. All right, recruiting is another thing that you can expect there to be some updates on. If you've spent any time in Dynasty, there have been some issues with visit scheduling during the top 5. There's a glitch where you aren't able to schedule a visit for the top 5 once players get to the top 5. So that's something that they're going to have to fix. We've also seen some bugs where you've got just minor little issues that pop up here or there. Within Dynasty mode, I had a major breakdown in one of mine where my offline Dynasty mode was gone. It's just totally gone. I had just won my first title with Louisiana in my second year. I do have pics to prove that. Not lying. I do have pictures to prove that, but was lost it. Don't know where it went. Have no idea where that information ran off to because it was not in the cloud. And so, but bug fixes like that, I would expect to be a part of the bigger title update that they have rolling out here before too long. We also know that there are some audio fixes coming down the line where we have some commentary that is being used maybe in the wrong situation. You've got a guy saying something, whoever's on the call, whether it be Chris Fowler, Reese Davis, whoever it is, that might say something that isn't pertinent to the situation in the game, or maybe is just totally flat wrong. I know one of the ones, at least in my neck of the woods, that a lot of people are up in arms about is they have Oklahoma in the Oklahoma versus Texas game in the Red River rivalry. They talk about Texas squeaking out a close win in last year's Red River rivalry when that's not the case. Oklahoma won that game by 4 points. And they got that backwards, and so it kind of throws the feel of the game off a little bit, and it's just little things like that. And so, would not be surprised to see some of those be addressed, obviously, whenever the update comes out. And as for when we can expect that, I've kind of noticed to this point you have a lot of updates on Tuesdays, which is has been typical for this game to this point. Madden has historically done a lot of their updates on Thursdays, and so that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I would expect in the coming weeks for that to happen and be something that you can look forward to. As for now, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much once again for tuning in and listening to the show. As soon as we have more updates about this, we will let you know. And we've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes here. We're going to get some things started for you on the forum over at Heartland College Sports pertaining to this game and Dynasty with Joe and myself. So make sure you're checking in over there, and we'll see you next time here on the In the Game podcast.